Okay, so I'm going to read the article here, which you're working with for the Google form. The article is titled Hebrews and the Land of Milk and Honey. All right, here we go. See Moses with the Ten Commandments here as the illustration. Maybe you've heard of him before, maybe you haven't. It's all good. Empires rose and empires fell. The Babylonians, the Assyrians, and the Persians accumulated immense wealth and power that allowed them to build capital cities of striking beauty. But their cities and palaces eventually fell into decay and were covered by thousands of years of sand and dust. One of their relatively powerless contemporary groups outlived those empires. These people were the Hebrews, known also as Israelites or, later, Jews. Their early contribution to humankind was not military power or groundbreaking technology. Rather, it was the revolutionary idea that there was only one God, a belief known as monotheism. This one God was called Yahweh. To the Hebrews, Yahweh was an all-powerful and all-knowing, yet beyond human understanding. I'll read that sentence again, sorry. Yahweh was all-powerful and all-knowing, yet beyond human understanding. These beliefs influenced the founding of the religions of Christianity and Islam. Abraham and the Torah. The history of the early Hebrews is known primarily from one of their sacred texts, the Torah. This comprises the first 5 books of the Old Testament of the Bible. According to the Torah, Abraham is the ancestral patriarch or father of the Hebrew people. Abraham was born in the Sumerian city of Ur. Yahweh visited Abraham, it is said, and instructed him to smash the idols of his father's gods, to worship the one and only true God, Yahweh, and to move his family to Canaan. Yahweh promised Abraham that if he followed these commands, he would be the founder of a great nation. His people would live in a land flowing with milk and honey. This land, known as Canaan in ancient times, is roughly located in the same place as modern-day Israel. Abraham's migration took place sometime between 2000 and 1700 BC, which was 4,100 to 3,800 years ago. It occurred at a time when the Canaanites lived in relatively small, walled cities. The Hebrews, who were nomadic herders, were tolerated by the Canaanites. However, the land that Abraham and his followers found was no paradise. The dry climate and rocky soil required considerable effort to survive. Drought eventually forced Abraham and his family to move to Egypt. The 12 tribes. The Torah tells how Abraham had a son, Isaac. Isaac's son was Jacob, who in turn had 12 boys. These sons became the leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob's most beloved son, Joseph, was sold into slavery by his jealous brothers. However, Joseph rose to become the Egyptian Pharaoh's chief minister of the land. So there's this family, this story is told in the Bible, where the son Joseph, gets sold into slavery by his brothers and he winds up in Egypt. But he works his way up and he winds up working as the Pharaoh's right-hand man, just to explain a little more. Here I go. When a drought plagued Canaan, his same brothers came to Egypt, begging him for grain. Ignoring their past mistreatment of him, Joseph supplied them with food and convinced them to stay in Egypt. There, the Hebrews prospered and became a great nation. They became so numerous that a later Pharaoh enslaved them in Egypt. The Exodus to Canaan. The Torah then recounts the story of Moses, a legendary leader who freed the Hebrews. This event, known as the Exodus, most likely occurred between 1224 and 1211 BC, after what the Hebrews believed were a series of acts by Yahweh on their behalf. Moses led his people out of Egypt. So this is from the Bible. Okay, a lot of people do research and work to find out how much the Bible involves stories that are miraculous, supernatural events happen. So they sort of fit our description of legends, okay, similar to mythology to a certain degree. But there are many people who do research to find out, um, to find evidence for things that happen in the Bible. We think that Moses, okay, the story, that there's some historical evidence for things that happen in the story. And it goes that Moses leads the people out of Egypt, where they were enslaved for hundreds of years, and back towards Canaan. The Hebrews then wandered in the desert for 40 years as they sought to return to Canaan. During this time, Moses received what later became known as the Ten Commandments from Yahweh. These were laws meant to govern the people's beliefs and behavior. He also struggled to keep his people loyal to Yahweh. Moses, though, died before he could lead his people back to Canaan. That task fell to Joshua. Under his leadership, the Hebrews settled among the Canaanites and the Philistines. The Old Testament tells of Joshua's victorious battles against these people. Over time, the Hebrews began to adopt the ways of the Canaanites. They settled down to a life of farming and herding. So, there's a great animated movie called The Prince of Egypt, which I've showed in class many years. It's PG, so check with anybody at home if you find it before you watch it, because it's not G, it's PG, so I have to be careful about what I recommend. But it's a very good movie. It's animated, and it was done very well, and it tells the story of Moses leading the Hebrews out of Egypt. So that story is from the Bible, but they made an animated version where they kind of adapt it for a younger audience. And I would show it in class, but we just don't have enough time, the schedule being what it is this year. Finishing the article. In 722 BC, the northern half of Hebrew lands, known as Israel, was invaded and mostly destroyed by the Assyrians. The southern half, known as Judea, survived until around 597 BC. Then the Babylonians defeated the Judeans and carried most of them back to Babylon as captives. During their captivity in Babylon, Hebrew scribes recorded the history of their people and their relationship with their God Yahweh. After 539 BC, the Persians, under Cyrus II, conquered Babylon. He allowed the Hebrews to return to their holy city of Jerusalem. However, other empires continued to dominate the Hebrew people. About 2,000 years ago, the Romans destroyed Jerusalem. They sent most of the Jews into exile. They would not return to their homeland as a united people until the 20th century AD. Just to finish up, there's different parts of the Bible. Different sections are written in slightly different ways, and that were written at slightly different times. So some parts are like songs, some parts are like advice, like books of wisdom, some parts are like stories, some parts are like letters. So because of that, there are a lot of different experts who kind of study different parts. Now remember, the parts that are referred to in this article are from the older part of the Bible called the Old Testament. It's much older than, it's the part of the Bible that is shared by the Jewish people, Christians, the religion of Islam, has much to do with things that happen in the Old Testament. But we'll talk more about that. We'll look more at that in depth tomorrow and later on. Okay, everyone, signing off for today. Thanks for reading with me.